Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Think About It 2.0. My name is Pastor Jake, and I just thank you for coming by sharing with me in my Think Cave as we continue our discussion in Christians and mental illness, part 2. All right. And we want to get into this right away, but we want people to understand that people need to understand the dilemma that mental illness causes the people that it attacks. They live in a bubble because they're afraid to let anybody know how they really feel because they feel as if it's some knock against them. And as people, just people in general, but certainly as people of God, we need to make ourselves more cognizant of what mental illness is all about, because as we learned from part 1, 25% of the population suffers from mental illness. So certainly that would touch someone that you know, even someone in your family. And we need to do better than just simply telling them, "Oh, you need to think more positive thoughts. Go pray about it. You need to work on your faith if you had better faith." But yet you wouldn't tell them that if they had cancer or diabetes, you tell them, go see a doctor. So we'll tell people to go see a doctor for their physical maladies. And you just tell them to go and think positive thoughts for a mental malady. Okay, mental illness is real, and we need to do a better job of understanding how that works. So, as we prepare now to get into this discussion, as you know, I want to kind of just move out of the way here and see if we can get into this discussion regarding mental illness. So I just want us to think about this for a minute. Christians and mental illness. Believe me, it's in your churches, and in many instances, it's in your family. If there is a history of mental illness in your family, it needs to be known. It's not some stigma. I mean, it is stigmatized, but you need to come out from under that because it's not your fault. And so people suffering it alone. And we just want to say, stop living alone with your pain. Stop living alone with your pain. So we want to get in this discussion and look at a few things, and simply want you to pray about this as we ask God to sow into this session tonight in a very special way, that somebody somewhere can be delivered from the stigma that they feel that they're under, to recognize that there are people that you can go to who understand mental illness, because Christians try to hide it simply because they're trying to protect their image. So we're going to look at this. Is mental illness ever the fault of the person who suffers from it? And we need to understand that answer is an unequivocal no. That's a myth. Mental illness is caused by personal weakness is an absolute myth. Please come out from under that. Please don't be held hostage by somebody else's ignorance, who have never researched mental illness, who know very little about it. Please don't allow yourself to be crushed by somebody else's ignorance. Is mental illness ever the fault of the person who suffers from it? No. It is never caused by personal weakness. Now, here's the facts. Just like any major illness, mental illness is not the fault of the person who has a mental health condition. It is caused by environmental and biological factors, not a result of personal weakness. Please, if you're not grasping that, I hope later on you go back to listen to the tape of this broadcast, because that's absolutely crucial. Is it possible to have mental a mental disorder? Is it possible to have a mental disorder without being considered mentally ill? The key distinction lies in the severity of the symptoms. All of us suffer from mental disorders or breakdowns in terms of anxiety or just going off, but it's not a regular part of our daily life. It's not a regular part of what we do. So look what it says. The key distinction lies in the severity of the symptoms and their impact on daily life. Someone might have a diagnosed disorder, but it doesn't significantly affect their functioning. They wouldn't be classified as mentally ill. All of us have a slight disorder, but it doesn't impact upon our everyday life. It's based on the severity of it. Okay? Does it really disrupt your life? Then that's something that you may want to get checked out. But it's not your fault. It's not because you're weak. It simply is. It is what it is. But don't let the ignorance of others and the stigmas that have been placed on this hold you in bondage. So is it possible to have a mental disorder without being considered mentally ill? Yes. The key distinction lies in the severity of the symptoms and their impact on your daily life. All right, let's keep going. Now this is taken from Aaron Hoover's book, Anxiety, Depression, and Jesus, Finding Hope in All Things. Because there are just simply a lot of Christians who believe, oh, I must not truly be a child of God. I wouldn't have this. I must not truly have any intimacy with God, or I wouldn't have this. God must hate me because I'm being punished. No. No, no, no. It is not true, and it should not be embraced by you. All right? Look what Aaron Hoover says in his book. Herein lies one of the most pervasive misunderstandings regarding mental illness, that God spares this kind of pain and suffering from those with a deep and abiding faith. So what he's saying is, if you really had a deep and abiding faith with God, this could never happen. That is a pervasive misunderstanding, because it's making people feel as if I can't be God's child, suffering from these anxieties, suffering from these types of mental disorders. I can't be a true child of God. All right? You're not spared this because you love God through Jesus Christ. You're not spared this. It could happen to any of us. It just didn't happen to me. Not because I'm all that, and it didn't happen to you because, that you lack. No. We really need to understand that, because that's something, man, if we're not careful, that is something that you will embrace, and you absolutely do not want to do that, because it's not true. All too often, the assumption in the church is that those who continue to suffer from mental illness lack sufficient faith. Listen to what the medical doctor or MD said. Mental Health in the Church, a ministry handbook for including children and adults with ADHD, anxiety, mood disorders, and other common mental health conditions. Okay? And we need to we need to understand that the stigma that's been associated with this is out of ignorance. To make a difference in the conversation on mental health, we must face several stigmas that have infiltrated the conversation. And a stigma is defined as a mark of disgrace or infamy, a stain or reproach on one's reputation. Unfortunately, the church isn't exempt from these. Rather, he says, I believe the stigmas Christians face are some of the worst to contend with in the conversation. Wow. Some of the worst. Some of the worst stigmas are from Christian people who face some of the worst of the conversations. Because others think that they can simply say, you need to go pray, you need to have more faith, you need to think better thoughts, totally ignorant as to how mental illness works, how you get it. This is why I hope you look at part 1. There are some basic things we just simply need to understand. And don't just simply imprison people as if they're not people of God because they have a mental malady that they're not responsible for. You don't feel that way if you have diabetes, or if you've been diagnosed with high blood pressure, or if you've been diagnosed with cancer. You don't feel that you're not a child of God, but yet you have a physical malady. But we assume a mental malady is the fault of the person. It's important that we recognize this untruth. It's important that we do. So let's continue. I hope this information is at least helping you or enlightening you. Let's look at the stigmas that are associated with mental illness, because it's important for you to understand these. These are stigmas, all right? Doesn't mean that they're accurate or true, but people embrace them. They embrace them and they live according to these stigmas, and they're not true. Mental illness is a sign of weakness, as we mentioned. No. Mental illness is a sin issue. No. If mental illness is a sin issue, so is high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, broken leg, broken arm. We need to understand that these things are not true. Mental illness needs to be surrendered to Jesus, and he would take care of it. Just like that. If he hasn't just taken care of cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes, why would Jesus just instantly take care of mental illness? It's a malady. It's an illness. Mental illness should just be prayed away. Not true. Mental illness only affects people who don't have enough faith. Not true. Mental illness is just a sign of being tested. Not necessarily true. I won't get into the divine purpose for it, because, God says in Isaiah 55, my ways are not your ways, my thoughts are not your thoughts. As high as the heavens are above the earth, are my thoughts higher than yours. Could God use mental illness to test us in his divine purpose? I'm not going to say that that's not possible. What I am going to say, though, is in no way and no how does any form of mental illness mean you don't belong to God. that you're not a child of God through Jesus Christ. It does not and will never mean that. So if we can just, and these are things that you can research on your own, okay? I don't want you to just, take it for granted for me. Research it on your own. But I do want to make you aware of it, especially those who may be suffering from it. Especially anybody that's suffering from it. At least educate yourself about it so that you're not listening to opinions of people who know nothing about it. That's really dangerous. Okay? All right, let's go on. And prayerfully, it'll be information that's a blessing to you. I hope so. All right? Look at some famous people who had mental illness, because a lot of people think, if there's a mental illness, my life is just over. I can't be effective. I can't impact upon society. I can't impact upon my family. I'm just a lost cause because I've lost my mind. That is not true. Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president, suffered from severe depression. So there were some rough times. There were some times he had to fight against the stigmas and fight against, the desire to commit suicide. Fight against the darkness. Fight against the brokenness. Abraham Lincoln. But look at the things that he accomplished and the impact that he made on society, on mankind. Ernest Hemingway, all right, Pulitzer Prize winning novelist, suicidal depression. Oh, there is hope. First of all, there's hope in Jesus. There's hope in knowing that you're a child of God. But look at some people you may recognize. Robert Schumann, the poet, bipolar disorder. I'm sure there were some days he had to fight through the pain, fight through the fears, fight through it. But look at the things he accomplished. Patty Duke, award-winning actress, bipolar disorder. Charles Dickens, great author, clinical depression. Edgar Allan Poe, father of the American short story, depression/alcoholism. Michelangelo, the famous artist, obsessive compulsive disorder. We do need to understand that if you're suffering from a mental disorder, it is not the end of your life. It is not the end of you making a wonderful impact upon your family. Yes, there are some things you're going to have to be treated for, people you're going to need to see, but man, you can live such a productive life if we come out from under the ignorance of others who do not know. They mean well. So let's not mistake that. They mean well. But meaning well does not mean that it is effective, that it's true. So let's just look at some, and this is just a few of many. Research it on your own. We just want to draw your attention to it. All right? There are some famous people who have been impactful in society, who have done great things. And we at least need to recognize that. Now, let's look at some basic conclusions. A significant portion of the population will experience a mental health disorder in their lifetime, with anxiety and depression being the most common types, including Christians. And all of us have those days that are not as good as others, where you may be going through a mental health disorder, a losing it. I lost it. It's the same as a mental breakdown, but it does not last. All of us have better days than others. All of us have those days where we just feel like, man, it just didn't, this day just didn't work. But the truth of the matter is, it's not like that every day or consistently. Well, with the mental disorder, we all have, you know, those on an occasional time, but when it's consistent, that's something that needs to be looked into. Mental illness can significantly affect an individual's ability to function in work, school, and social situations. So, if it's impacting on you on a consistent basis in everything that you do, it's a possibility that you need to see someone. You need to talk to someone. Please don't let the stigma of discussing your mental health keep you broken and fragmented and in continuous pain. Look at 3. Stigma is a barrier to treatment. Social stigma surrounding mental illness can prevent people from seeking help and accessing necessary treatment. And it happens all the time. People don't want anybody to know. So they certainly are not going to see a life coach. They're certainly not going to see a psychologist. They're certainly not going to see a psychiatrist so that their family and friends know that they need to see someone. Because of our ignorance, people with mental illness fail to seek help. Okay, early intervention is crucial. Identifying and addressing mental health concerns early can lead to better outcomes. Some people suffer with it for decades before they seek help. And now it's become an integral part of how they think and who they are and who they trust and who they don't. Man, if we see early symptoms and you can research those symptoms, then you can do something about heading it off. And that's important. Treatment options exist. While not always a cure, effective treatments like therapy and medication can help manage symptoms and improve quality of life. It's not about getting rid of it, but it can be managed. And it can be managed to where you have a significant quality of life. Okay? And of course, as Christians, we're always praying. We're always trusting God. We're leaning and depending on Him, especially on our days when it just seems like it's unbearable. But there are treatments to this. Doesn't mean it'll be cured, but it can be managed. And that's what most of us are simply trying to do in life anyway, is simply manage it. All right. Environment and factors play a role. Factors like stress, trauma, social isolation, and poverty can contribute to the development of mental illness. That's why you see so many people that are homeless or out on the street. Many of them suffer from untreated mental illness. Now they're middle-aged and 50 and 60 is the only life they know and understand. And had it been treated earlier, had it been recognized and understood earlier, there are many lives that could be changed. So certainly we want to say to young people, certainly to parents who see behavior in your children that might cause you some consternation. Check it out, especially if you have mental illness in your family background. It's something you want to know. So it says, number 8, importance of awareness and education, raising public awareness about mental health is vital to reduce stigma and encourage help-seeking behavior. Are we, we have to ask ourselves, are we playing a part in the suffering of our loved ones? Are we, through our ignorance now, are we causing our loved ones to suffer even more than they have to? Because that's a fair question we need to ask ourselves. Because the ignorance, not knowing, and constantly giving advice, not knowing what we're talking about, and constantly telling people what they should do, and we simply use the spiritual platitudes. You need to pray more. You need to work on your faith. You need to go to church. That will not stop mental illness. That will not cure mental illness. We know the capabilities of God. But we also know the capabilities of God in our physical malady, and we go see a doctor. It is my hope that in this session of Christians and mental illness, it is my prayer that, if you're suffering from this, it's not your fault. If you're suffering from this, it's not something you did. It's not some kind of divine punishment. It's just something that happened. Beyond your control, beyond the fact that you desired to have this malady, has nothing to do with you. But it is important that you at least recognize what's going on and maybe seek treatment. Because the truth of the matter is, this is real. This is real. This is real. Christians and mental illness is real. And the thing is to stop living alone with your pain. It's not necessary. So it is my prayer that this session has been a blessing to you. It is my prayer that you will not allow the stigmas and ignorance of others who do not know suppress you and make you have to live imprisoned by a malady that you can get help with. So God bless you. God keep you. Thank you for stopping by my Think Cave, sharing with me. This is Pastor Jake. I ask that you would subscribe, like, engage with me on the page. Leave me some comments and share. Would you tell somebody about my channel? It's very difficult to authenticate in this mass, area of talking to people. It's tough, but it's something the Lord told me to do, and I'm going to do it, regardless of how it plays out, because God has been good to me. So I know that if you research some of these things, it's going to be a blessing to you. So it is my prayer that you love God because He loves you, and respect others. God bless you, and God keep you. Thank you for coming and sharing with me on Think About It 2.0.